Welcome to Training for Athletes podcast. We are your hosts, Jerry Devine and Jason Miller, and we are co-founders of Training4Athletes.com, the marketing platform that finds trainers for youth looking to increase their performance. Today, we have the blessed opportunity to have Russ Romano, the visionary behind D1 Mindset Coach. And Russ and his team are looking to reshape the way the sports world looks at mental training.
So before we get started, I want to give a quick shout out to our sponsor for making this episode possible, Protect Youth Sports. Protecting the youth sports experience is important to Training for Athletes, both on and off the field. If you're interested in finding more about Protect Youth Sports, check them out at protectyouthsports.com. Now let's get into it. So Russ, here's what we know right now. You're a former Division I pitcher at the University of Vermont.
Baller.
Take us to that moment when you realized the mental training was as important, maybe more important than the physical training.
I didn't realize it. I put my head down and I try to work hard. And, just to kind of take a step back, when I was in high school, unfortunately, I lost both my parents at a young age. My father passed away 2 days before my freshman year of high school. And my mom lost her battle with cancer just 9 months later. So my freshman year of high school was bookended by the loss of the two most important people in the world to me. Prior to that, sports were, an outlet for me. And I played free, I played loose, and I played hard. I continued to play hard through my high school career, but I didn't play as free and loose. I began to doubt myself. I began to compare myself to others. My brother was a Division I pitcher for Hofstra University, had a great high school and college career. And, I kept comparing myself to what he did in high school. And I wanted to avoid failure. And, one of the things that we train is failure is feedback, right? The most successful people in the world fail over and over and over again. But what separates them from the others is they're reflecting on it. They're learning from it. And that's something I didn't do. So by the time I got to, college, everyone's the best player from high school.
Sure.
So your physical abilities won't get you to where you want to go unless you're training the mental game. So unfortunately for me, I didn't learn about the skill sets of mental performance until I was past my playing days. And that's when I reconnected with one of my former teammates at University of Vermont, who became one of the leading mental performance coaches in the country, working with over 100 major league ball players, from Bobby Witt Jr. to Corbin Burns, to big Division I programs like Texas baseball and so on. I reconnected with him and really learned that these are skill sets, and there's a systematic approach to elevating your game from the mental side.
So I'm glad you kind of mentioned the systematic approach, because, that experience of what you went through to get where you were, you could have kept that to yourself, right? And you developed and learned this system. What made you want to kind of share that with other athletes, with coaches?
So we reached out and started working on mental performance when I started coaching my son's baseball team. And this was a talented group of kids, and the missing piece was the mental side. And I always say, good coaches teach you how to win. Great coaches teach you how to respond. And too much of sports is reactionary, and not enough of it is trained intentional response. So for me, I wanted to arm my athletes with some of the skill sets that I didn't necessarily have. And I got to the Division I level and I didn't have those skill sets. So once we started working on mental performance, I started integrating these skill sets in a systematic way in my own personal life. And as a financial advisor, my wife's like, why are you getting certified as a mental performance coach? You're a financial advisor. What are you doing? I said, well, I see the transformation it's making in my everyday life. And there was so much intersection between what I did professionally as an advisor to what I also do as a mental performance coach and running this business, from, having athletes or having clients define their goals, helping them stay accountable to those goals and showing them a roadmap on how to get there. So one, selfishly, it was transforming the way I woke up every day and I attacked the day. And two, I saw the transformation it was having with the athletes we were working with. And I said, this is something, I'm called to do. This is something we have to do. And when I developed a program for one of the, larger baseball academy programs, Bucks County Generals, a few years back, a friend of mine who owns the Generals, Dan Custers, saw what we were doing. And he said, I want to be a part of this. And that's when Dan and I teamed up and we launched D1 Mindset Coach.
That's awesome, right? So I hear you talking about how you utilize this mental toughness training for yourself, for adults that you work with in the financial world. So mental toughness gets thrown around all over the sports world. What does that look like? What does the mental training look like for that 14-year-old kid that's shooting a foul shot at the end of the game? The kid that's at bat, 3 balls, 2 strikes, 2 outs, right? Those things that we always dream of. How does that look? The mental training part of it for that kid that we've always put ourselves in that situation. How do we get that kid through?
Jerry, that's a loaded question. We have 10 pillars of mental performance. And like I mentioned, it's a systematic approach. So the first pillar is developing an elite mindset. So part of that is, how do you view pressure? Do you view pressure as something to avoid, or do you view pressure as a privilege? And pressure is a privilege, right? If you're in a situation that's not important, you're probably not feeling pressure. So we're all going to feel pressure. And those nerves that you feel, the body, biologically has the same reaction when it's excited and when it's nervous and when there's anxiousness, right? So if we're developing the mindset and training our minds to say, you know what, I feel these butterflies, but this is a privilege.
Thing, yeah.
Like, this is a good thing. This means I'm the guy or I'm the girl who's in this spot and who's going to rise to the occasion. So you have to, intentionally train your mindset. And that's just not once in a while. That's every day when you wake up. Some of the things that we have our athletes do is, write down daily affirmations, think about and write down, what are you grateful for, right? What you feed grows, right? So you have a choice every single day and every moment every day. You could feed the negative, or you could feed the positive, right? So even when you don't feel like it, when the world is knocking you down,
which is most of the time,
there's always something you can pull from it, right? When I'm having a morning and I just wake up and I'm thinking about my day, and maybe there's, somebody I don't want to meet with, or this happened yesterday, I'm still writing down the things that I'm grateful for. And it could be something as simple as, you know what? This cup of coffee I'm about to drink, it's warm, it's good, and I'm grateful I have this cup of coffee, because some people don't have that luxury. Yeah. So no matter how small or how big, training your mind and feeding your mind those gratitude reflections and positive mindset, eventually you start to see the positives around you. So developing an elite mindset is the first pillar of mental performance. And that's the foundation.
So there's this weird thing right now, I think, with mental training, and it comes from the fact that when we were young athletes, no one was talking about mental performance, mental health, mental training. So I think the parents of our generation hear mental training, mental performance, and their reaction is, my kid needs therapy, right? Like, that's where they go with it.
Yeah.
So help us to talk about the difference between mental performance training and maybe mental health support. And is there a crossover and an overlap somewhere in there?
Yeah. I think the best analogy I can give you here is mental health is equivalent to physical health, right? Am I physically healthy, right? Do I have high blood pressure, or do I have low, normal blood pressure? Do I have any, sicknesses or ailments that I'm dealing with? That's the physical side. It's equivalent to mental health. I would say mental performance is equivalent to physical fitness, right? So you could be healthy, physically healthy, but you may not be physically fit.
Mm.
So mental performance is elevating peak performance. It's taking an athlete who is physically gifted and elevating their game across all platforms, right? From how they respond on the field to, how they operate and the discipline they develop when they're off the field, right? So it's really all encompassing, but I would say that's probably the best analogy. Mental health is kind of equivalent to physical health, and mental performance is equivalent to physical fitness.
That's a great analogy. I know, teaching in school, it reminds me of like the kid that was super talented. People assume that they were going to be successful. Like the kid in school that has a high IQ, oh, that kid has it all and they're going. But in reality is without the EQ and being emotionally smart and having resiliency skills, I guess would be the same, right, as that talented kid that's not strong mentally, that they have all the tools, but they don't have that extra thing to get them to that point. So,
Yep.
so talking about that, so through all of the teams and the athletes that you work with, right, and I'm sure thousands of them, what would you think is the one biggest mental roadblock that keeps them from reaching their full potential?
Gosh, all individual athletes are so different, and not everyone needs the same tools in the toolkit. But I would say developing the habits and routines of excellence, which is another pillar of mental performance for us, is huge, because that takes a physically gifted athlete and really develops them to focus on the process. And their process is, what do you do every day to get a little bit better? Right. And we could focus on outcomes, or we can focus on the process. And the most elite athletes in the world, you constantly hear them talking about the process. And I think for the layman, they're thinking like, what does that mean? Well, here's exactly what it means. It means the daily habits and routines that you perform every day, both pregame, off days, during the game, after the game. That's all the process. And if you focus on that, the results will follow. And if the results over a long period of time aren't what you want them to be, it's not a results problem. It's not an outcome issue. It's a results. It's a process issue.
Yeah.
So you have to adjust something in your process. And Nick Saban is Hall of Fame coach, just master of talking about the process. I think he coined his whole coaching style, calls it the process, right? So habits and routines of excellence. One of the things that we do with our athletes is have them, one, define their goals, right? And what's the cost, right? What do they have to give up? Some time on the Xbox, or maybe giving up some time scrolling on the phone and things like that. But define, what are their telescope goals, like long-term outcome goals? And then we have them define what are their microscope goals. Their microscope goals are those daily actions, those daily tasks that they have to accomplish. Yes, the controllables.
Yeah.
Right? You can't control necessarily those telescope goals, but you can control those microscope goals. Those are those little things that you're doing every single day. So it could be, 5 minutes of visualization. It could be, doing some T work, going through, reps, if you're infielder, outfielder for baseball, to use that analogy. So we have them develop a daily success checklist. And we use an app, a free app called Habit Share. We're rolling out our own app on D1 Mindset, where we're going to have a daily win tracker. And it allows them to input, one, their long-term goals, but two, their microscope goals. And every day, right, we want to check off the box. Like, what do I want to accomplish every day? It could be pregame routine, and then you have a list of action items you do. So developing that discipline and that commitment, and doing your daily success checklist, I think, is the most valuable for a really talented athlete. And it all comes down to controlling what you can control, and that is not the outcome. And I think too many athletes, too many parents are all focused on outcome-based goals. and you want to speak to elite athletes, you want to speak to athletes who perform at a really high level, right? They're not talking about outcomes. They're talking about the daily grind. They're talking about the discipline that they show every single day, especially when they don't feel like it. You got a guy like Michael Phelps who, is in the pool every single day for 5 years
regardless
straight,
of the situation.
sick,
Yeah.
holidays,
Yeah.
birthdays, it doesn't matter. He's in the pool, right?
It's a mindset thing.
Yeah.
That is a mindset,
Yeah.
but it's also controllable.
Yeah.
But I also think it's something that doesn't get talked about enough, whether it's coaches or parents, right? Because kids now see the instant gratification, right, on the social media. I want to be this guy.
Yep.
Right. And so they look at, right, that long-term goal and think that just by being in the gym during practice, right, the bare minimum, that I can get to that point. They don't take a look at all the little things that these guys and girls are doing every single day to get to that point, right?
Yeah.
And so that's a great point to make, because I don't think parents a lot of times see what really needs to happen for your kid to get here. It's I paid, so they should be here, right?
Yeah.
So that's
and some athletes, many athletes, accomplish those goals, the big home run to win the game or the shot that won the game. They call it because they're just physically gifted, and everyone develops at different stages. So I look at my 11-year-old baseball player, football player. When he has a great game, yeah, I'm congratulating him on going 4 for 4 or 2, whatever he did, outcome based.
What was the process that got him there, right?
But that's what I'm focused on.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm not ignoring it, but I'm not focusing on the outcomes, because I know next game he could be 0 for 3. So I am solely focused on, well, what did you do during the week to prepare?
Yeah.
Right. And if you develop those habits and you develop that discipline at a young age, you are going to be light years ahead of those kids who developed, we all see the 6'2"
Sixth grader,
who's in 5th and 6th grade, and he's hitting home runs and he's, dunking over people and doing whatever. It's like, okay, great.
They all get caught up to
Now those guys and girls are real dangerous if they develop those habits and skill sets from a young age. But what we find is they're relying solely on their physical abilities, and they've all been taught to praise the outcome. Their parents praise them, their coaches praise them, and it's all outcome based, and it's not focusing on the process.
And I hate the fact that they rank
kids, that
third
age.
graders,
yeah,
top 100
Yeah.
in the nation. How do you?
Yeah, I wish there was a ranking to rank somebody on what kind of attitude, effort,
how coachable are they,
and have a metric and say, and that's where coaches come in.
That's what they look
and
at.
That's where parents come in, and that's what they have to stress, right? Like talent comes and goes, right? And you speak to college recruiters, you speak to college coaches, they're looking at body language, they're looking at focus, they're looking at how this guy or girl is treating their teammates. They're looking at all those, I'll call them intangibles, right? Because everyone can put up a highlight reel on social media.
Well, we talk all the time to high school kids, especially in basketball as coaches, that guess what? When a college coach comes to see you, every other kid they saw also scores 20 in the game, right? So what separates you from those kids, right? And I hear you talk about the daily checklist. And we as coaches, right, we talk about small wins, right? Take small wins and turn them into big wins. And that's essentially what you're talking about with your daily checklist, right? What can I accomplish now? What can I see success in today to get to that, those telescope vision that you're talking about?
And I do it as an adult. Yeah. I have my AM routine, my PM routine, my workout routine, and I'm trying to check as many boxes as I can. I'm not perfect. I don't hit them every day. One of my things is, no food after 8:30. Doesn't always happen when you're a busy parent and you're coaching sports and, you get home from but like I am intentional and I'm reflective and I'm thinking about these things. And most of us let the day take us wherever it takes us. And the more intentional we can be, that is when we're going to improve, because what we don't know, what we don't think about, we can't improve upon, right? It's tough to read the label inside the bottle, right? Like you need to know, and reflect, what am I doing? Like, and what am I doing with my day? And one of the other pillars is time management and organization, because the more organized we are, that actually is liberating and frees up time to do all of those things kids want to do, like go out, play with their friends, spend time on the phone and do all these other things. But if you're organized and you time block, and we have our athletes go through time blocks and we teach them how to live by a calendar. And these are skill sets that they're going to need when they're adults.
Yeah, it's so valuable. I mean, you're giving us a ton already. And one of the things we wanted our audience and especially parents is to walk away with a few tools, right? And we've talked about a ton of them. And I think back to, I've had the opportunity, obviously, outside of here to hear you and Dan speak at events. And I always laugh at, we go to these events and everyone's giving away something, right? A wristband, a keychain. And Russ and his partner did this great speech, and they were throwing out things to the audience, and I still have it sitting in my house right now. And it was a toilet. It's a foam toilet because, go ahead and give the reason behind the toilet.
Flush it.
Right?
It's a flush it routine. And, we talk about habits and routines of excellence. One of those routines is having a routine for when adversity hits you in the head, right? When, you strike out in a big spot, when you miss, the game winning shot. Whatever happens, it's going to happen. You're going to fail, and you have a choice. Like, are you going to focus on the last play, or are you going to flush it and move on to the next play? So we have a routine that we train our athletes, right? And it's called the 3-step release, flush it routine, whatever you want to call it. And we have our athletes not only define what they're going to do in their 3-step release, and it's action with a physical action with an association. So for a baseball player,
so give us a 14-year-old baseball player. What does that routine look like for them? What are those steps?
Yeah, we want the athlete to customize it for what for themselves. But a popular one is let's say a kid just took a strike right down the middle. And he's feeling like, man, I should have swung at that, and he's feeling the pressure, and he hears the crowd, and there's the game is moving fast. Step out of the box, right? Physical action with association. That's step one, right? That could be readjusting your batting gloves.
Right.
That tells your mind, okay, I'm moving on to the next play.
Right.
That's the association, that physical action, right? Step two, focal point. It could be the left field foul pole, right? One thing I like about the left field foul pole is there's a left field foul pole in every stadium there is, right? So you have a focal point. You're looking at the left field foul pole. You're regrouping, right? It's just you and that foul pole. Everything else is blocked out, right? So physical action association, focus on a focal point. It could be a spot on the bat, right? Many of our athletes are looking at a spot on their bat, and then followed by a deep breath, right? Mm-hmm. And then the last part is positive self-talk, right? This could be a directional self-talk, like instructional self-talk, like lock and load, like grip it and rip it, something positive. You got this. And then you take possession of the box and you're ready to dominate. But it is a routine that you go through to reset yourself, right? And you do that. I do that in the professional world. I have a bad meeting or a bad phone call. I have a 3-step release, right? We all need to flush the last event, flush the last play, and focus on being in the moment on that next play or that next phone call or that next meeting, right?
Yeah. That's great.
So the lanyards isn't a good idea. Still got about 800,000. We'll get back.
Flushable toilets.
So that's great. Toolkit. Visualization. Does it work? Is it real? Is it hype?
Well, ask the neuroscientists who have done studies on this for many years. The studies show that rehearsing physical actions in your mind are as 50% as effective as physically doing the action itself. So think about that, right? For the athlete who may be injured, right? And he can't physically get up. For the athlete who is preparing for a game, right? Pre-game, you're at home, right? Take some time to imagine how you want to perform in that game. In the first person, right? So you're not visualizing yourself and seeing yourself. You're seeing yourself from the first person view. You're seeing that fastball come in. You're seeing yourself take that 3-point shot. You're seeing yourself score that goal from the first person view. This, ask any elite athlete, visualization, mental imagery is a part of their skill set. And it's something that needs to be developed. I remember when I first started visualizing, my focus was very scattered. Like I'd start and then I'd be thinking about 5 other things after a few seconds. So the more you do it, the better you get at it. And when you're on deck, as a baseball player, right? You're timing up your load, right? You're watching the pitcher, right? You're also visualizing, right? You're visualizing yourself barrel up the ball. So visualization, it's free. It doesn't take a lot of time. I know parents, spend thousands of dollars on training, right? And I know it takes time to, take your kid to a field or a court or wherever. Visualization is free, and you can do it right in your room.
Is there a specific time for a kid?
Yeah, I mean, I like pregame and in-game visualization. Typically, as a baseball player, typically we're having our athletes visualize their at bat when they're in the hole. So, not on deck, but in the hole. And as a pitcher, just a brief visualization right before they do their pre-pitch routine. And that pre-pitch routine, is different for everybody, but it could be swipe of the rubber, deep breath, something you say to yourself, like, let's go.
It's funny when you watch now, like hearing this, right? And you'll watch a game and you see each of their routines.
Watch a major league game and look and really pay attention to some of these elite athletes. And
you'll see it.
And most of them are doing it intentionally.
Yeah. So you touched on something a couple minutes ago where you talked about outcomes, which is obviously a huge thing. And as people working with, preteen, teenage kids, right? Very outcome driven. They're also in that phase of building confidence and establishing who they are. How do you teach a kid to build confidence regardless of outcomes? When the sports world, everything we know is timed, is scored, there's a winner, there's a loser. So that kid who's in a slump, that kid who misses the shot, didn't get the desired outcome they wanted. How do they still develop confidence out of that?
It's difficult.
Yeah.
It's difficult. It's not easy. I'll take you guys to school. The Latin root word of confidence is confidere. Confidere means intense trust. So the Latin root of the word confidence has nothing to do with outcomes, right? Doesn't mean, you hit a home run, right? It means intense trust. Now, how do you develop intense trust in yourself? That means doing the work when no one's watching. That means having the discipline and showing up even when you don't feel like it, right? So that means, doing your preparation, right? When it's not practice, right? Going above and beyond. And that proves to yourself that you do the hard things, right? And, I have an equation, P plus P plus P equals confidence. Preparation, right? The time you put in to be fully prepared to perform at a high level, plus past performances. We have something called the cookie jar. We stole this from David Goggins. And the cookie jar we have a lot of our athletes do is writing down some times that you faced adversity and you overcame it, and putting these little notes in a cookie jar and thinking about those moments, right? You can be in the middle of a game and thinking about a cookie jar moment. Like, you know what? I've overcome this. Yeah. I can get up and smack the ball around 0-2, bases loaded last inning to win this game. I've been here before. I've faced more difficult challenges than this. So past performances, reflecting on the time where you were the guy or you were the girl, and then positive self-talk, right? We talked about what you feed grows. So you constantly have to be your best friend. You constantly have to be your coach. You have to coach yourself when you're in a game, after a game, before a game. Those 3 variables equal confidence. Confidence isn't built in the games, it's revealed in the games.
Well, that part's probably got to be the hardest part, right? As fathers of teenage daughters, I think that negative self-talk sometimes, they're the
Yes.
hardest critic, right?
Yep.
Of constantly, worrying and focusing. And I don't want to say I talk to my kids about you don't need to beat down yourself, right? Like there's so much out there that you can be proud of. And it's hard at 14, 15, 16 years old to see that.
It's real. I talk to my daughter and my son about it all the time. And, we all got these two wolves on our shoulders, the negative wolf and the positive wolf, right?
Yeah.
And the one you feed is the one that wins, because these wolves are always at battle with each other. So one of the skill sets we teach and strategies we teach our athletes is writing down, in addition to gratitude, developing that elite mindset, is writing down positive affirmations every single morning and repeating them to yourself and posting them in places where you could see them multiple times a day. Right. So my son has his affirmations, his gratitude, and his goals on his bathroom mirror. Right. So we constantly have to feed ourselves these affirmations and gratitude. And the more you do it, the more you start to see the world a little bit differently.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah, and it's that work, right? That it's, again, going from kids that need immediate instant gratification. If I give myself some
Grace,
positive talk,
Yeah.
and I go and it doesn't work out that second, then it's like it didn't work, right? But it's the habits that you develop over time, right? And then we always resort back to those habits, right? And so it's having kids understand that it's not a one-step thing, it's not a one-time thing, right? It's an all-the-time thing. And the more that you do it over time, then you start to see things change, right? So trying to get the kids to understand that this, like you said earlier, like this is the process, and you got to trust and believe in it, and you got to do it every
I
day.
got to tell you, it's the word process. As a Philadelphia sports fan right now, it's taken on a new meaning. Gives you chills when you start thinking about the process, but it is so important.
I mean, the most confident people I know have a belief in themselves.
Yeah.
Right. And they're going to fail. Right. The most confident people I know, the best performers I know, fail more than everyone else. Right. So what makes them special? They have a belief in themselves. They have a belief in themselves because they develop trust in themselves. And they develop that trust is because they showed up and they put in the work when they didn't feel like it.
Yeah.
Like, no one wants to get in the pool every day for 5 years.
Yeah.
No one wants, he didn't want to do that. Michael Phelps didn't want to do that. Right. I don't think Kobe Bryant wanted to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning to get to the gym every single morning. But he knew if he put in that work now, he could rest later knowing that he's going to have a Hall of Fame career. Right. So it's developing that trust, and that develops self-belief, and that self-belief turns into confidence. And if you don't do that, your confidence, you will be an athlete whose confidence goes through ebbs and
Roller
flows
coaster.
based on uncontrollable outcomes. So imagine that you're tying your confidence, which every athlete, it's like the gold, like every athlete wants to be confident, right?
Sure.
And you're tying that special prize to something that is outcome based, which is not in your control.
All right. I don't want to flip, but I do. Something for parents and coaches, because I cringe as I hear you say the controllable versus the uncontrollable. How about the kid? Skilled, puts in the work, and we know it, we see it, right? And many times parents have the right thing in mind, right? Ill intentions sometimes that they don't really know that they're causing. What is that? What would you say to a parent? What's the one piece of advice that you can give to a parent that's in the stands that is really the reason that their kid isn't being successful? It's their biggest mental hurdle. What advice would you give to that parent?
It's tough because there's a lot, and I don't want to come off as preachy, but I think one of the biggest roadblocks, unfortunately, for an athlete's development is their parent. And ironically, you ask, 10 out of 10 parents, they're going to say, I just want what's best for my kid.
Right.
But I think a lot of their identity gets wrapped up in how their kids are performing, and there's a lot of emotion there. And, when DNA is involved, it's very emotional, and it becomes a little foggy.
Well, think about what sports has become, right? It's become, I'm putting a lot of money into it. I'm putting a lot of time into it, right? So that it becomes something that the adult owns as much as the kid, right? And then
Yeah.
that gets internalized.
I would say, for everyone to take a step back and think about what does sport, what do you want your son or your daughter to get out of sport, to get out of being a competitor? Is it a trophy? Is it a ring? Like, what is it? Accolades? What is it? And for me, I want my kids to develop resilience, to develop the skill set of being coachable, to develop the skill set of being a good teammate. Because one day they're going to have teammates, they're going to have coworkers, right? They may have a boss or they may be a boss. I want them to develop the skill sets of leadership, right? And being a competitor and being disciplined. Those are the skill sets that we want to take from sport, because the probability of our athletes earning a living, a good living anyway,
Right.
from playing the sport they're playing at the age of 12 or 13 or 14 is minuscule. So I think everyone just needs to take a step back and focus on, what are we teaching our kids? And what are we teaching them is what we're focusing on, right?
So I'm going to get to another toolkit type question, right? So as young coaches, Jerry and I used to, we go to every coaching clinic there was for basketball, right? And we listen to all these speakers, and there's always a moment. And one of the moments that stuck out for me that I still talk about years later was listening to a speaker talk about, with the audience full of coaches, what's the most important 5 minutes of any game? Of course, every coach knows the first 5 minutes is the last 5 minutes. He goes, no, it's the 5 minutes as a parent that you get in the car. What are you saying to your kid? Is it, you should have done this, you should have done that, your coach stinks, you should have played more, that kid shouldn't play. So fast forward, we're all parents now of kids playing sports. And we've been in that situation. We're in the car. Our kid just took a tough loss. They didn't play as well as they wanted to. What should we say as parents? Or probably more importantly, what should we not say in that moment?
Yeah. Before I go there, so outside of running Training for Athletes, outside of hosting this podcast, you're an athletic director, right? Imagine something happens during the school day and something negative happens, could have been within your control, out of your control, regardless. And your principal, right, is with you in that car when you're driving home to your family, hopefully just kind of being able to unwind, reset, wind down, and he's pointing out all the things you did wrong.
Yeah.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
Like, would you want to,
Right.
would you want to go back to school the next day? Would you want to get back in the car with anyone who did that? The end of the day, your athlete cares about their performance. They care about their outcomes, right? They care what they look like in front of their teammates and the opposing teams, right? They already feel bad.
Right.
And even though a parent may, just be bringing it up to try to teach them for the next time, it's not helping.
They don't want to hear it.
It's not a positive thing. We don't want to hear it. So, for me, if, our athletes have a bad game, or my kids have a bad, game, I am not talking about anything outcome based. I'm putting on some music. I'm asking them, what do they want to get to eat? Like, I am leaving it alone, and, I'll have a conversation with them. If they want to talk about it,
They can initiate it.
they have to initiate it. And for some of our parents, I've coached them to speak to their kid and say, hey, if you want me to give you some feedback, you let me know. Some of them have a code word,
Right.
Like, you can have that communication with your kid, and then they can say, hey, yeah, let's talk about it. But if they don't do that, and they're just staring out the window, and you're talking about every strikeout they had or that error they had in the big spot, you're not helping them develop. You're helping them hate.
You're pushing them away.
the game.
Yeah.
And this is a dance we're all playing as parents
Yeah.
and as coaches, right? The more we push, the more they're going to pull away. So sometimes we just need to take a step back and remember, like, what are we focused on emphasizing and teaching our athletes? Like, at the end of the day, I don't need my 11 or 12-year-old to be the best player on his team. I want him to be the hardest working, best teammate on his team. So I'm going to focus on the things that he can control. Again, going back to the controllables versus the non-controllables. And I'm not, getting down on him about going 0 for 4 or making an error in a big spot. So
I say all the time in my life outside of here, right? There's no better book or school of life lessons than sports, right? Failure, winning, teammate, all the things we've talked about are through sports. And there's a reason when you look at leaders of Fortune 500 companies or have a sports background, right? Or leaders in politics, things like that. It's because of those life lessons they learn. It's not the ring. It's not the championship. It's those life lessons that came through sports.
Yeah. You asked most athletes. I mean, I reflect back on my, baseball career, and the best part of it was the camaraderie, right? The best part of it was the relationships and the bridges you made. So yeah, at the end of the day, no one's going to remember that you went 0 for 4 or missed a big foul shot. So I think parents, we need to maintain perspective, and we need to be a parent, not a coach. And I fall into this trap when, my son wants to go out and just have a catch. One, I always try to stop and always say yes, no matter what.
Right.
Right. Because one day he's not going to want to have a catch. And one day I may not be physically able to have a catch. He may be throwing too hard.
We'll talk about which one's coming first.
So, let's all take a step back and have perspective. Like, when we do have a catch, sometimes I feel like always coaching him.
Yeah.
Even when we're just messing around having a catch. I would say, parents, love the fact that your kid wants to shoot hoops with you in the backyard or have catch. There's a time for coaching and there's a time for play. And we need to remember, we want these kids to fall in love with the game. So they want to do it next year and the year after and continue to develop and get better. If we're always coaching, and I'm guilty of it sometimes, but I'm cognizant of it. So I can, reel back.
Yeah.
If we're always coaching, it's going to push them away.
I try to say after the game, I'm proud of you.
Yeah.
Love you.
Love watching you play.
Love watching you play.
Yeah.
Love watching you compete.
Yeah.
That's it. And it's hard because you pull back and you go, this isn't you. It's not about you.
Right.
Right. It's just there. So it's cool that my daughter plays softball and not basketball, because it's easier for me to say, let your coaches take the reign. Basketball, I think you bring the coaching back in, and I don't think it would work out. So I'm fortunate that they chose softball.
That's funny. My daughter dances, competitive dance.
And you use your background for that.
Super athletic.
Right.
Super athletic, but I don't know anything about it. I know nothing about that. So I can't critique.
Perfect.
Everything looks great. I'm like, wow. I can't believe you did that split. I'm like, it's just amazing. She's like, well, I was like, well, it looked good to me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
it's the best spot to be in.
It's the best spot to be in, right? Be a little ignorant sometimes. It's fine.
You know what?
I mean, I got a couple questions before we get into some fun stuff here. One of them is, right, there's a lot of parents who are probably listening to all this stuff and go, all right, so how do I know if my son or daughter is ready for mental performance training, needs mental performance training? Are there signs I should look for? Are there, the right age, maybe 13, 14? Like, what would you tell a parent?
Are there those red flags that you can look out for that is the difference between, a little bit of anxiety and pressure?
Yeah, that's
where that starts to kind of fall over the edge to debilitating anxiety.
Yeah, I mean, that's clearly an obvious red flag, right? Maybe they perform free and easy when they're in practice or just playing around in the backyard, but when they get into a real competition, they don't perform the same way. They freeze up, they play a little tight. But I would emphasize that mental performance is not only for somebody who's showing physical, and physical talent and needs and struggling in certain areas, it is for the elite athlete, right? There's a reason why the elite of the elite work on their mental performance. Now, they may not be focusing on the same mental performance skill sets as others who may have, battles with fear of failure, lack of confidence, performing under pressure, whatever it may be. But there are, different skill sets that you can focus on. So most of the athletes we work with, typically between the age of 12 and 21, and they're at all different levels physically, and level wise, but there is something for everyone to develop, right? Whether it's developing a more positive outlook or integrating certain visualization, habits and routines, motivation and commitment skill sets within their game to take it from being great to elite or average to good or, good to great, right?
So what do you say to that coach, right? Let's talk about coaches for a second, because I know you do a lot of work with coaches too, not just the athletes.
Yeah.
Right. So that kid you just described who's free and easy in the backyard and loves it and are in practice, and then they get in that moment, the old school coach would say, well, they're just not a gamer. How do you get coaches to buy into
Just grind it out.
Yeah, right. Work harder. How do you get them to buy into the system of thinking of working with kids and seeing a full program effect?
Well, it's difficult for anyone who's stuck in their own ways, but I truly believe the best coaches, they're always looking for something to improve themselves.
Yeah.
Right. They have a growth mindset. They don't have a fixed mindset. So for that coach, let's call him or her the old school coach. It may not be a good fit because if they don't have a growth mindset, they're not going to want to evolve. The best coaches that I've ever known of and that I've ever met, they're looking for different strategies to take their game and their athletes' game to the next level. And if integrating some of these skill sets is going to do that, they're all in, right? So, we have coaches, with the team that we coach, we're doing well, better, how reflections after games. We have our athletes, reflect on what are they doing really well, what could they improve upon, and how can they improve upon it. You talk about, developing open lines of communication that are non-threatening. You go through a well, better, how with an athlete, as opposed to being a coach who is going to just ream you out for something. It's like, well, let's take a step back. If you really want to develop and improve your athlete, screaming and yelling at them is not always the best strategy. Like, let's let them identify areas of their game that they can improve. And let's also help them identify areas of their game that they're doing really well. So that's just one small strategy that our coaches use in communicating with their athletes.
That's great. Well, I think it's time we test Russ's mental toughness.
Oh gosh. Okay.
All right. So here on the Training for Athletes podcast, we created this rapid fire round
All right.
where we call it no timeouts.
Okay.
So you don't have a chance to think, don't analyze. It's the first thing that comes to your mind.
All right.
All right. Simple. It's not hard. Just
All right.
quick. All right. First question. What's the single greatest movie of all time when it comes to sports? That's too much time.
Rudy.
Okay.
All right. Pre-game music, pump up, hip hop and rock, or calm and focused?
Hip hop.
What are you listening to?
Biggie.
Okay, that's all you win there.
The clean version with my kids.
All right. One-on-one dinner with any athlete, living or dead. Who is it?
Kobe.
Love it.
Biggest lie told in youth sports.
That all these tournaments and showcases are going to do anything for your athlete.
One thing every athlete should do the night before a big game.
Sleep. Sleep is probably okay. I'm sorry. This is rapid fire.
No, do you
I
think
won't
that's good?
elaborate.
No, that's all right.
Sleep is the most underrated. I'll call it a skill set for these purposes. It's the most underrated thing athletes don't get enough of. And literally some of our more elite athletes, we have them track their sleep, right? And there are days where you're not focused, you're not performing at the same level. And we had an athlete we were working with that was like that, and we had them, just track their sleep. And on days where they get 9 to 10 hours of sleep,
Killing it.
they were focused. They were on. So sleep. I know my 12-year-old son doesn't want to hear that, but if you're 12, you should be getting 8 to 10 hours of sleep.
All right, coach, it's the 30-second clock's going. Let's go get your team out here. All right. One book you would give an athlete.
Atomic Habits, James Clear.
And the last one. Finish this sentence. The most mentally tough athletes I've ever seen all have this same thing in common.
Discipline.
You win. One violation, one technical, but other than that, everything was great. All right,
I was usually good for a few charges too.
We're going to rephrase it to 1 30-second timeout.
All right. So when we first started talking about doing this podcast, one of the things we thought of was having a signature question, a question that regardless of what your background is, if you sit at this table with us and we're talking youth sports, that you're going to answer it. And everybody's going to come at it from a different lens. So I'm really curious, given everything we've talked about today. And the great thing is you're the first person to answer it. Right?
Wow.
So here's our question. If you could change one thing about youth sports in America right now, what would it be and why?
And you have unlimited time here.
I would say if I could change one thing, it's get back to development. Get back to, we went all in on tournaments. We went all in on pay for play. And, there's a reason why, the baseball players come out of Japan
And basketball guys out of Europe.
Yeah, and basketball out of Europe. They have the philosophy that we used to have probably 40 years ago. Less games,
We get
right?
kids now in baseball playing 100 games a year, right?
We do not need baseball players playing 80 to 100 games in a summer.
Yeah.
I mean, that's more than I played in college.
Yeah.
And we have 12-year-olds doing that. There is no need. You don't develop in games. You develop in practice if you do it right. You develop outside of practice when you work on the skill sets that you want to continue to improve. There are some things you get out of games, but we are in this world, we are in this system where there's a lot of money at stake. And it's been created where kids and teams need to enter tournaments, and they need to pay to enter tournaments to win a ring, to win a prize. And don't get me wrong, I'm in that world. But I question if that is the best path ultimately for athletes. And I think, if we get back to focusing on developing athletes, I think we'll all be better served. And we may not have to spend, $7,000, $8,000 a year on tournaments. But at the end of the day, I think that's a big thing that I would change. But
Well, and that's exactly why we have this question, right? Because I think that's a phenomenal answer. It's a great perspective.
Gem.
It really is. And, it's why
Web gem for baseball.
it's why we wanted you sitting here today. Before we let you go, tell people out there where they can connect with D1 Mindset Coach. If they want to start that work, how do they get a hold of you?
Yeah. Our website is d1mindsetcoach.com. Check us out. You could email us at info@d1mindsetcoach. All the athletes, all the teams we work with, it's a customized experience. So, we have a strategy session where we're speaking to parents, we're speaking to the athlete. just about where they are in their development cycle, what they would potentially want to get out of this and hope to accomplish. And we have some amazing coaches that work with our athletes, and it's just a great experience. But email us, info@D1 Mindset Coach. Check us out on our website, d1mindsetcoach.com. Follow us on social media. We put out some really relevant and great content.
I've been following your parent series over the last couple of weeks. It's excellent.
We just had a parent series just talking about just parenting athletes. It's difficult. It's difficult. I'm a parent of athletes, and I have to bite my tongue, but I have to be intentional about it, right? Like you want to say things, and you just have to hold back and let them go through a journey, guide them when they need guidance. But yeah, follow us on Instagram. We're at D1 Mindset, at D1 Mindset Coach, as well as Facebook.
So Russ, I mean, this is exactly what Training for Athletes is about. We can't thank you enough for being here and joining us for our first episode. Today we talk about, a lot of times we talk about the physical reps and how they matter. It was great to hear about the mental reps and how much that matters in a youth experience. We're looking forward to future episodes and continuing to dive into the youth sports world and following what D1 Mindset Coach will be developing. I know we got an app coming out shortly. So we're excited to see some of that stuff. And I know it's extremely valuable to the athletes, the parents, and the coaches out there. So thank you very much for your time tonight.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah,
appreciate it. It was fun.
And that's exactly what we wanted. Just real conversation with experts, doing the real work, man. So we really appreciate it. That's the purpose of the podcast. That's what we wanted to get out of it. And I thought today was a great start. You're awesome, dude. I found myself just listening to you, and it's like, damn, he's really good. Like, what is it? D1 Mind? Let me stop. Honestly, it was awesome. It was so much great perspective, and I'm still actively coaching. And so I'm listening to all the things that you're talking about. And, I'm one of those coaches that wants to continue to get better. And so many things that you said kind of, allow me to help to reevaluate what I'm doing and how I can get better. So there's a ton of things that you laid out for not just me, right, but for all the coaches and parents. So it was awesome to hear. It was great. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Joe. Awesome. Appreciate it, man.
And follow D1 Mindset Coach. You can find them on Training4Athletes.com, Russ and his partners. So make sure you check out our future episodes. We're really going to get into some good stuff with the youth sports world, and we look forward to it. So thanks again, Russ.
This was awesome.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And if you enjoyed the podcast, please share it with coaches, parents, athletes in your circle, and hit up Training4Athletes.com. Find the trainers, coaches, and programs out there available to help you improve your performance. Appreciate it. Thank you, Russ. You're the man, man.
Thanks,
That's awesome.
Thanks, guys.
Where coaches come to get seen and athletes come to improve.